Hey there, everybody. Welcome. Today I'm going to be talking once again, my daily stream on broadband infrastructure, broadband deployment, and maybe some of the different funds that are out there. I'll be right back. Thanks for joining me. I'm Rick Uzzi here at Zquorum, and again, I am going to be talking today about broadband deployment, broadband funds that are available. Specifically, I've been covering the broadband infrastructure plan the last couple of days that the Biden administration passed. And I wanted to go over some funding sources today that are a little different. It does mention this, but I just wanted to make sure that you were aware of these. So let me show you that real quick. So I found this interesting on Fierce Telecom's site that they have access here, or they put together several different funds that you would have access to if you are a service provider, or in some cases maybe a state. The broadband infrastructure plan that just passed is going to be money that's allocated to the states, and then the states will decide what to do with that and who will get that. So that could be phone companies, cable companies, municipalities, co-ops, that kind of thing. But there are other funds that are available, and this is, I'll go ahead and post a link to this in the comments. This is something, again, that is on the Fierce Telecom site, where they have gathered some information about different sources for broadband. Now, this has been up a while, so you can see there's various updates, and they're noting the last. Actually, they don't note here in the latest. They don't actually note that I see the passage of the last bill. They do have it in here, so I'll show you what they have here. So as you go through this, you have to realize that they haven't necessarily updated everything, but there's still really good information, especially on past broadband deployment kinds of, or money for deployment. So for example, we've got the U.S. Broadband Funding Invest in America Act. When you see this, this is actually what just passed. So this name has changed. It's now it's the bill that passed this past week, and you can see that here. It says updated 11/8. Passed by the U.S. Senate in August and the House of Representatives in November. The bipartisan infrastructure bill allocates a total of $65 billion for broadband improvements. So talking about this most current bill, it says an original version of the bill put forth in the House was called the Invest in America Act, but the Senate version has also been referred to as the Infrastructure Investment and Jobs Act, and that's what it's called now. And it says full text can be found here, so a link to that. So I just want to note that that's on here, although there's a lot of updated information on this. So really, what I was going to cover today was just some other federal funds that have been out there. For example, the U.S. Broadband Funding Consolidated Appropriations Act of 2021. This was passed in December of 2020. This allocates more than $5 billion to broadband-related issues. It funded key initiatives, including the Emergency Broadband Benefit Program, Secure and Trusted Communications Network Act, commonly known as the Huawei Rip and Replace Program, Broadband Infrastructure Program, and Connecting Minority Communities Pilot Program. So this EBB, the Emergency Broadband Benefit, these were funds that were made available to provide subsidies to low-income households that were having a hard time affording broadband, and it gave them $50 per month. I think there's still money out there. They've been allocating it. They said at the end of August, so this is a little bit older, but 2021, 1,100 broadband providers were participating in this, and more than 5 million households enrolled. And it notes here, this is updated, the Invest in America Act, or not that anymore. It's this last bill that just passed this week. That act. They would rename that the Affordable Connectivity Program, and they'd receive an additional $14.2 billion in funding. So that's meant to extend this benefit much longer. They're also dropping the amount, though. So from $50, it's going to $30. So I'm not sure if you still would enroll in the EBB, or probably maybe it switches over now to this new one, but there's still that subsidy of $30. There still may be money in the other one, but I think this is meant to supplement that and extend those funds out longer. Then you've got the Secure and Trusted Communications Network Act. That was money to rip out if you've got Huawei or maybe ZTE equipment, something that's the U.S. government does not feel secure because of influence maybe from the Chinese Communist Party. Then they are providing funds to rip that stuff out, and that is, I believe, still available. Broadband Infrastructure Program. That act set aside $300 million for a new broadband infrastructure program administered by the NTIA. This is the same organization that is administering the Biden broadband bill that just passed this week. It was just signed into law. that helps fuel fixed broadband deployments in underserved areas. The window for the initial funding applications opened in May and closed on August 17th. NTIA said in August the program was massively oversubscribed, noting it received $2.5 billion in funding requests during the application window. So that portion of things, it sounds like, is closed out, but not everything. There's the Connecting Minority Communities pilot program. That part of the act had $285 million in funding for a new pilot program administered by the Department of Commerce's NTIA, what I was just talking about. The pilot aims to help historically Black and tribal educational institutions and minority-serving businesses and nonprofits purchase broadband connectivity and equipment. Now, in this one, the application window for grants opened in August 2021 and will close on December 1st, 2021, so you can still get in on this. NTIA said it expects it to be completed, or expects to complete its selection of award winners by March 1st, 2022. U.S. broadband funding, Broadband Reconnect program. This is part of the USDA program. Broadband Reconnect was established in 2018 to help serve areas with no or insufficient access to broadband service using grants and loans. To date, the program has distributed over $1.5 billion in funding, with $656 million doled out in 2019 and $853.9 million in 2020. In October, the USDA unveiled plans to dole out $1.15 billion in the program's third funding round. In addition to the usual loan, grant, and combination of loan grant award options, the agency said it will also offer an option providing 100% grants for tribal governments and socially vulnerable communities. Up to $350 million will be available through each grant category, with $250 million available for a combination awards and $200 million available for loans. We'll begin accepting applications for the third round on November 24th. So again, this is still out there. So there's this big influx of $42.5 billion that was just released as part of BEAD, this broadband program out there. Really $65 billion total, but a lot of the focus is on this $42.5 billion. And yet there's still this other money that's been out there, not nearly as much. So you can see how much more this act that was just signed into law on Monday, how much that's providing, that $42 billion. But there's still money out in these. And what's interesting is some of these programs, there's a matching requirement, 25% matching requirement on this new act, where the state gets the money and then it's going to be given to a service provider of some type. There's a 25% match they have to do, but you can use some of these programs, specifically mentioned the act, to cover those matching funds. So that would be something to keep in mind as you're looking at these different options. U.S. broadband funding, American Rescue Plan Act of 2021, or ARPA, and this is one, for example, that was mentioned in the new bill, that you can use this money for matching funds. The American Rescue Plan Act of 2021 became law in March. In addition to allocating billions in fiscal recovery funds for states, it also mandated the creation of a capital projects fund and the Emergency Connectivity Fund. The fiscal recovery funds, the bill includes a total of $350 billion in funding for state, local, and tribal governments. You hear a lot about tribal here, so they're really trying to get broadband into tribal areas that maybe have had, due to poverty or other reasons, have had insufficient access to broadband. There's a lot of money out there for tribal locations. That can be spent, among other things, on broadband infrastructure at their discretion. The Capital Projects Fund portion of this also sets aside an additional $10 billion in a Capital Projects Fund. What's $10 billion when you're talking about $42.5 billion, right? But it's a lot of money. Territories and tribes, again, can tap to fuel projects like broadband infrastructure deployments, which directly enable work, education, and health monitoring. And then the Emergency Connectivity Fund. The Act also mandated creation of $7.2 billion in an Emergency Connectivity Fund, which is administered by the FCC, not the NTIA in this case, designed to help schools and libraries purchase broadband devices such as tablets, hotspots, and routers. So that's an important part of things as well. You can get people access, but then they need some kind of equipment, especially in a school, for example, for the students to be able to take advantage of that. However, participants can also use funding to stand up their own broadband service in areas where commercial connectivity is unavailable. And then here again at the end it says, on November 8th, the FCC announced an additional $421 million in support, boosting its total commitments to more than $3 billion. So even despite this last act that passed, there's still these ongoing funds that are available that you can take advantage of. And then there's RDOF, the Rural Rural Digital Opportunity Fund. That's that reverse auction where this went directly to service providers that would bid based on how little support they would accept. There was a lot that was said would be allocated, and then the FCC pulled back on that, and they're reviewing applications. So a lot of money has been promised, but not a lot's been sent out yet. That was set to distribute $20.4 billion to connect rural homes and businesses to high-speed broadband, and this at that point was like the highest amount ever that was going to be funded. An initial round of funding targeted completely unserved areas, awarding $9.2 billion through what was known as the Phase 1 auction. To date, the FCC has announced $1.7 billion in funding for winning bidders. And again, they pulled back a lot on that. They have announced some bidders, but they're reviewing applications. They're saying in some cases, some of the areas that were bid on were not really unserved, or they were parking lots, they were airports where, it just didn't need broadband. And people like Elon Musk, SpaceX bid on things because they just looked wherever it said there was unserved. So this is one of the issues that we have with the broadband maps that are going to be addressed before they issue any money with this latest BEAD Broadband Act that was just released on Monday. A Phase 2 auction will focus on providing support for partially served areas, with more than $11 billion expected to be distributed through this funding round. So again, more money here with RDOF in addition to all of the other funds that we're seeing coming out here with this latest Broadband Act from this week. And then I included this. It's just part of this website. Again, I'll link to this this Sears Telecom page that's got all this information. This is U.S. funding, broadband funding by state by state. And you can just go through here and it lists all the states. Again, there's some updates. Lists all the states and what they've gotten as far as broadband funds. And this is all related to prior broadband funding. This has got nothing to do with the Broadband Act that was just signed into law this week. All right, so hope this was helpful for you. Again, I'll be on here every day, so just go ahead and subscribe. If you're not subscribed, click the little notification bell so that you'll be notified whenever I'm live. And I will be updating you on the broadband bill, the Broadband Act that just passed this week, as well as other stories that might be related to getting broadband funds or broadband deployment. Again, thanks for joining me. I'll see you next time. Bye-bye.